2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brandon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
I'm having a difficult time breaking up with my addiction. What do I do?
Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery. Brandon, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
Doing great, man. Springtime in northern Utah is great.
Man, life is good. It's like I went out Sunday morning. I did a ton of yard work on Saturday. The grass was like a little bit wet and just green as can be. The leaves are coming out. The blossoms are on the trees. It's just like, I swear I was back in Ireland. It was like an Irish Spring commercial. It was just like, just freshness. The mountains, the snow-capped mountains. And
everything except you sitting naked in a river, right?
Well, yeah. But I might have done that later that afternoon at the river.
No, it's actually, that's one thing I love about the springtime here in Utah, even though it's taken a long time to come this year because of the winter, is that we get about a month and a half where the mountains go completely green before they brown up. Yep. And it's just so beautiful. It feels almost like you could be in Hawaii or something for just about a month, and it's awesome. So
yeah, we're kind of late entering it this year. It's been cold, so it just feels extra good, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, Brandon, before we get started, I just wanted to mention for our listeners, we have set new dates for the Rising Sun retreat.
That's our men's retreat.
That's the men's retreat. It's going to be this fall, so it's a ways out, but I just wanted to mention for those who are interested, we've had some early signups already. risingsun.org. risingsun.org is the website, and we're going to be holding it on September 28th through October 1st.
The link is live, and I guarantee this thing sells out. So
I think we've already sold. I think we cap it at around 30 or so, and we've already sold like 14, I think.
Yeah, and we haven't promoted it at all.
This is the first time I'm mentioning it on the podcast.
So don't procrastinate. Don't be one of those that's like, oh, I was going to, and then you're out. So just go over there, check it out. Link is live. So, all right, Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. If you could give a little context, just give us a little background of what's going on, and then ask any questions you have.
Sure. Absolutely. So my name is Daniel. I'm 30 years old, married for about 7 years with 2 small children. and I am actually a currently practicing marriage and family therapist. My addiction story starts with my family of origin. First thing I want to say is that I had a really blessed upbringing. Two very sincere parents who did the best that they could. And the values that I was raised with provided a lot of meaning and guidance in my life, and still do to this day. And the fact that my parents are still married is an incalculable blessing that I'm aware of every day as I work with families of divorce. The second thing I want to say about my upbringing is that as a child, I experienced it as an extremely difficult and vulnerable time for me. I think the number one thing that really shaped me was my sibling position. I was youngest of 5 siblings, with a kind of a significant age gap between me and my next sibling and then the next sibling. So as a young child, I don't remember being played with a lot as with my siblings, and the circumstances of just the neighborhood I was raised in, not a lot of friends, availability for me. So I remember a lot of time struggling with boredom and loneliness, and I became quite adept at entertaining myself through reading and other forms of imaginative play as a young child. So I struggled with a sense of lacking significance in my family. I wasn't the sibling that they turned to figure out where should we go to eat for dinner or what movie should we watch. And I don't really blame them for that. I was quite annoying as a young child, I would say, because I didn't know how to articulate my needs and get those met. So growing up, when I was around 7 or 8, I just started having, I would say, normal masturbatory behaviors. But because of the culture of the family I was in, it wasn't psychologically safe for me to disclose any of that. So there was just a lot of shame mixed around that. And my parents, like my mother is a nurse, and she's naturally kind of emotionally anxious and rescuing. My father is an engineer, so he's emotionally avoidant and somewhat intimidating. So I just kind of kept these things to myself. And so when I was accidentally exposed to pornography around 14, which is a little bit later than people on average, it just gripped me. And so my teenage years struggled a lot, was always wrestling with just toxic shame, trying to motivate myself into repentance through shame and self-loathing. I met with a couple of bishops because that's all I knew how to do to repent, but nothing really helped. When I got to my later teen years and graduating high school, I had managed this facade of academic and athletic achievement. That's how I had maintained kind of this external sense of self-worth. But on the inside, I just felt completely hollowed out, and no one in my family knew what I was doing on a daily basis. I finally got to a point where, in my mind, I thought I had tried everything to recover. But I had a significant spiritual experience when I finally wrote a letter to my parents when I was 19, turning 20, about a decade ago, disclosing my addiction, more out of hopelessness and resignation than out of anything else, and had a miraculous experience where my shame was proven completely false. And so I really count that as my start date for my true recovery. And since then, I've been through many multiples of groups. I really love Sexaholics Anonymous and what they've done for me. Went on a religious mission, had just a phenomenal time. And that's when I changed my degree from pre-med to therapy. I knew I wanted to be in the room where healing was occurring. So when I get back from my mission, I continue to engage in my recovery. I meet my wife, who is absolutely wonderful beyond estimation. And I find levels of recovery that I never thought possible. I find that I go days, even weeks, without any desire or temptation really bothering me. But for the past 4 years, I have been stuck on this plateau where I'm on this, I would say, 2 to 3 month sobriety cycle. And in certain circumstances, when, the opportunity is right, that vulnerability kind of comes up, and I lose control of myself and I act out. And then it kind of starts over again, where I'm in the light for several weeks. And then I get casual, I would say, about my recovery system, my dailies. And then it happens all over again. So a couple of weeks ago, my group facilitator mentioned this idea about, we have this relationship with this frenemy. Our addiction is both our enemy and our friend. And that made a lot of sense to me, because I understand that addiction is an attachment disorder. So my thought became, okay, what would that look like to actually get off this plateau, to let go of this relationship with my addiction? And how do I actually step into experientially mourning the loss of my addiction? Like, as an intellectual exercise, I understand that, but I don't know how to do that emotionally. So that's why I'm kind of struggling to let go of this relationship with my addiction.
That resonates with you, though, Daniel, that's maybe part of what's going on for you here, is the emotional attachment to the friend part of this addiction. Mm-hmm. that you're having to let go of. And when you think about letting go of it, it does feel like the loss of a relationship, or like some type of grief.
Yeah, like some kind of backup plan. Like, this addiction, this coping mechanism has always been available to me. And there's like a fear of what would happen if that truly is gone. I understand that I can be in a place where I have plenty of coping mechanisms, and I know what to do with my stress, and I know where to go for real connection. But I get in a frame of mind where contemplating letting go of this back door is terrifying. It's scary to do that.
Feels a little backwards in what I think you need to do, which is to look at this addiction and find where it's really helped you in your life. Find where it's been there for you in your life and stepped up for you in your life. I know this sounds crazy, sounds backwards. Mm-hmm. But to mourn something, to grieve something, you have to go step into the pain. And it's easy to take an addiction and just say, oh yeah, that thing's bad, I hate it. Yeah, I'm done with that. Well, that's not true, because you've hung on to it for so long for a reason, because it's worked in many different ways for you. And so it's kind of backwards, feels a little paradoxical to go in and say, let's really talk about the good things that you're giving up by letting go of your addiction. But that's the only way to do it, is to actually acknowledge what you're choosing to not have in your life anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. I've considered this question before in our group. And I think for me, going back to my childhood, I gained significance and attention through my athletic and academic achievements. And part of me is grateful for that. I mean, the culture that I was raised in was just highly competitive among me and my siblings. And that enabled me to become an intelligent and hardworking individual. But it also attached my self-worth to my performance. And my addiction, it was this weird relationship where I didn't know how to motivate myself from joy. only motivating myself out of pain really made sense to me as a child and as a teenager. And so I used my addiction as kind of like a cattle prod to further my self-development.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I really emphasize growth and progress in my life. It's one of my core values. And I don't really know how to continue to grow if I don't have some source of pain in my life. So it's always interesting that usually my relapses occur when I begin procrastinating, whether it be, school assignments, paperwork, or work assignments. I begin procrastinating those things, and the stress kind of builds up and I feel stuck. And then I relapse and I feel this surge of self-disappointment and shame. And that pain actually gives me, like, my productivity drastically improves immediately after my relapses. So it becomes this kind of tool that I use to get me unstuck so that I can do the productivity so I can have my worth.
Yep.
And I think that is kind of the mechanism that keeps it in my life.
Yep.
Man, you just did such a beautiful job of outlining at least one component of what your addiction provides for you. And I'm sure there's listeners right now going like, whoa, like I never thought of it that way before. But if I'm hearing you right, you're in some ways addicted to needing to feel bad about yourself because that's what you've used in the past to get yourself to do good things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way to summarize it.
And not knowing any other way, really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, I rely upon that. And so if I were to let that go, then how would I get myself through school? How would I get myself motivated to do this or that or whatever? Because you've done that for so long.
Yeah.
You said something too. You said, I don't know how to use, how did you say it? I don't know how to use joy as a motivator or something like that. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Like joy is this, I intellectually understand that it's a much more reliable fuel source that can sustain you chronically, like over a long period of time. But pain is this, O2 rapid burn kind of fuel source that can really make a lot of things move quickly. And my engine runs on that O2 at times because I feel stuck. I feel like I can't perform at the level that I want to perform at. And so I have to use that O2 to kind of get myself kickstarted. And I use that in a lot of small ways, self-critical thoughts and those kind of ways of thinking. But it's relating to myself in a positive way so I can motivate myself through joy like that. It doesn't feel natural to me at all.
Yeah. I'm Brandon. I'm kind of thinking about like what we went through at the beginning of the year when we decided to change some of our eating habits, and we don't have to get into like what's right or wrong between these two diets, but you and I were on pretty high sugar, high carb diets, and we decided to go to some low carb kind of diets for a while. What happened to your body, Brandon, in the first couple of weeks?
Oh, freaks out. It just goes nuts. The cravings, but I lose weight.
You got sick. You got keto flu a little bit.
Withdrawals.
You shakes. You go through all that stuff. And in some ways, I'm hearing that even on a broader level from an emotional perspective with you, Daniel, where you're like, okay, I haven't spent time in this other fuel source place. So number one, I don't even know if I can trust it. Number two, I don't even know how to use it if I did go there. And I do have this old friend that's been here with me since I was 14 years old. And it reinforced belief systems that I was already living even before that came into the picture. Like, you were already in this performance, like I'm the youngest kid. I need to perform. I need to do whatever to get my value. And then porn came along and was like, oh, and look, you can not only secretly get some like respite once in a while, but I can also make you feel bad about yourself so you can keep working hard.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, it's there's almost like a little bit of an act of faith to move away from that, because you're stepping into some of that unknown territory, trying to fracture all of these false beliefs, while at the same time there's the sadness of, you called it the back door, the safety plan, it's in some ways it really is just like having an old girlfriend on Facebook that you still communicate with just enough in case your marriage breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Its tentacles are sophisticated. Like, I'm hearing a couple things. You bring up I use it for motivation to accomplish things. I'm also hearing that when you felt very insignificant and lonely as a child and growing up, what do you know? There was that there for you. There, sexual acting out, even in a kind of false or whatever way, is one of the closest things we feel to actual love that's not really love. And so it's not a contingency model of earning your love or whatever. You just feel good because you feel connected to something, and you get that release and that connection. It reminds me of like it's got its tentacles all around you. And in some ways, Daniel, you're like, thank you for hugging me. Like, you're giving me a good hug. And in reality, what this addiction is doing is suffocating you. Mm-hmm. But you're scared to tear the tentacles off because you might just stand there naked and not know where you're going to land or what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So you want that hug back on you that's actually suffocating you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the requirements to actually mourn the loss of your addiction is to have the courage enough and faith enough to not know exactly where you're going to find that motivation, to not know exactly where you're going to find that love and that feeling of significance in your life without it. And we could keep going down the list of the other things that the addiction has provided for you, because it's more than just these two things, right? Mm-hmm. But you can see how powerful addiction is. Because it works for these things. Yet, like your analogy of the O2 fuel, the emissions are destroying your world. Like, it's yucky, it's nasty. And so using that for fuel is not working for your life. So you've been trying to get rid of it, but at the same time, you can't go all the way and get your electric cars or whatever we want to call it. Right.
So I like that visual of kind of the tentacles, because it's this monster that I use in a seemingly beneficial way. And I was actually visualizing this the other day, and if I could for just a minute, my addiction, if my addiction was a person, my addiction would be this exotically beautiful woman that can become any shade or color of person that I want her to become. She's like a shapeshifter. So she's like this monster, and she is always available to me. She never tells me anything that I don't want to hear. Mm-hmm. She is willing to hold me in ways exactly the way that I want. And she presents herself like she is a strong woman worth respecting, but in reality, like, she can't say no to me. So in that way, there's a real, like, despisable weakness about her. She needs my validation in order to feel beautiful about herself, and she will change into any form or shape to get that from me. Mm-hmm. And I've had this relationship with her where I scream at her and I tell her that I hate you, and I want her out of my life. And I try to kill her like with a stake and like a vampire, but she shapeshifts around it. And the more I try and attack her, the stronger she becomes. So I know that strategy just doesn't work. So acknowledging what good this monster has done for me, it is counterintuitive, but I think that it's this way that I can sever this relationship with someone who has played a huge role in my life. And quite honestly, I'm not entirely sure who I would fully be without her in my life. Mm-hmm. And I know that's really sad to say, but it's like, I don't know if I will become the kind of excellent man that I want to become without her in my life, because I need her, the pain. I need that in order to motivate me. I'm afraid that I'm going to become content and, like, I don't know, become some lazy bum on a couch somewhere if I don't have like some kind of pain in my life to motivate me. And I'm saying it out loud now, it sounds ridiculous, but that's how my heart feels. And so there's this gap between my head and my heart about it. But that's kind of this this relationship that I have.
That was beautifully said, Daniel. Lots of vulnerability inside of that. And there's tons here that we could break down, more than we're going to have time for in this podcast today. But I want to maybe ask you this, because you're having it turn one way when in reality you're chasing in a different way. I have this woman who's a shapeshifter who can't say no to me, who will do anything she can to stay close to me and change for me in all ways. Even when I hate her, she still shows up in ways and continues to try to captivate me. Mm-hmm. And you said that's a massive flaw in her, when in reality, she's a strong woman who can't say no to you. That's insight. That's really good insight into some of your emotional needs and beliefs about yourself and what she's trying to provide for you. Mm. What is, if you were to take the sex part out of it, what is the itch that you're trying to scratch with that fantasy that you just described?
That I don't have to be alone. That I can be loved whenever I need to be loved.
And not only are you being loved whenever you need to be loved, and you don't have to be alone, but you're doing it, but it's coming from somebody who you see as competent, which means something. Mm-hmm. If it was just somebody else, I think that's significant in what you described, that it's a strong woman who can't resist me. It's like you're looking for somebody to give you something, your self-worth, and it has to come from a place that seems significant. Mm-hmm. Right? There's
almost like a social status kind of element to it. Like I've always fantasized, like because I have this well-developed imaginative mind that I created as a young child, I'm always kind of in fantasy, and I recognize that it's not helpful for me. And my fantasies on a day-to-day basis are hardly ever sexual. My fantasies are always about power and accomplishment and influence and achievement. You know, like I fantasize about becoming great, famous, or, you know, powerful.
But Daniel, the fantasy there is for what? Like, you want to be great and achieve things. Why? Like, what do you want?
I want to feel significant. I want to feel like I want to feel like the world isn't passing me by. As a child, like, I really, really struggled with a feeling of being left out. You know, when my siblings would be doing their projects or their things, and I I would always be the one on the outside wanting to come in and being told that I was too annoying or too whatever to join. And just that feeling of being left out, like the feeling of not knowing a secret when other people know the secret is like the worst feeling in the world for me. And so I want that feeling of significance. I want to be on the inside. I want,
but Daniel, what I'm seeing is that you're externalizing this question. So you're trying to prove yourself. You're trying to achieve enough. You're turning to something else, to an addiction or to sex, or you probably want mom and dad to see you so is there another way? Like, question for you. Did your parents love you perfectly?
No, they loved me in the best way they knew how.
Right. So, but they didn't love you perfectly. No. And to be honest with you, my youngest turns 8 this month. If we had another kid, like right now, like that poor other kid, because I'm burned out, like I'm done, and so your parents probably did the best they could, and they did not love you perfectly. And so now here you are as an adult man, still searching for that love. And ultimately what's under all of this is, I need that love. I want that love. And if you were to let go of your addiction, which provides you kind of this pseudo form of that love, if you were to let go of that, you're like, well, then how do I achieve? How do I be motivated to be good enough? Do you see how this whole question is busted? How this whole system, like Tyler always says, the game that you're playing is a losing game. If you let go of your addiction, and you're still operating under, I need to achieve in order to be significant, where else can you find your significance? Where else can you know that you're seen, loved, understood?
Yeah, well, that would be my spirituality and my relationship with Heavenly Father and with Jesus Christ. I know that the belief that my worthiness to be loved is dependent upon my productivity or my performance. Like that is a false belief, and trying to challenge.
Do you play that game with God?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Every day.
So you're under that same system with God, right? So even that relationship with God is going to be under that same feeling of like, I got to prove myself.
Yeah.
Right?
It reminds me of, and I prayed about this and I felt okay to share this on the podcast today. That spiritual event that happened near 10 years ago that really kickstarted my recovery was this event where I had written this letter to my parents disclosing this secret that I had hidden for 7 years. And then I got in my car and I drove out. I just drove out south. I lived in southern Utah, and I drove, it was New Year's Day of 2012. I drove down south into the high Arizona desert, and I found this abandoned ranch, and I laid out in the cold ground. And I remember it was a full moon that night, and I was just exhausted of being exhausted. And I remember coming to a realization that I had no idea who I was. And this question bothered me. Like, how could I not know who I am? And so I came up with this idea of like, maybe if I recall every memory that I can, that's the answer will be in there somewhere. So I started with my earliest memories. I started as far back as I could go, and I recalled every detail that I could. And it took 3 hours. And by the end of it, my head hurt. But I finally reached that moment of laying on the ground, confident that I had recalled every memory possible. And I all of a sudden realized that in this entire 3-hour exercise, never once had I thought about my acting out or my addiction.
Mm.
And I had this pure sensation of love wash over me that just, it filled me. And I knew, I heard the Lord say to me that I see you, not as you see you. And I felt this connection with Heavenly Father. And I know that, like, this touchstone experience in my life that changed me, if I could just stay connected to that feeling, I would never ever need to go back to my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
But I lose connection with that feeling all the time. And so that was the experience that really gave me a first look into how God sees me. And I'm so very grateful for it, and I don't remember it enough. But I lose connection with that true sense of who I am, that God doesn't see me for what I've done or what I can do for him. He sees me as his child, and he just loves me. Mm-hmm. And so I lose touch of that feeling all the time.
That is a beautiful experience, Daniel. Thank you so much for sharing it. I have a couple of thoughts that are going through me. One is, in relationship to that experience, I wonder if you've just barely scratched the surface of allowing God to really show you and love you, show you who you really are. And maybe you've had a taste of that and you fall back on that over and over again. And I think you can and should, because it's a benefit. And yet now you're on the precipice of a new step into allowing him to love you even more fully by taking this leap of faith, this breakup with this relationship you've had for 15 years and allowing God to have to fill in the gaps in some ways. I got this image in my mind for a second, Daniel, and I want to just humor me on with this for a second. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I picture, a 14-year-old kid with your face, your head on a 14-year-old kid's body. All right. sitting on a park bench, and you happen to go walking by, but you can sort of sense, everything that he's feeling and thinking. That he's got these beliefs inside that, he has to perform to be good enough, that he grew up with older siblings kind of missing out. He didn't quite have the friends he wanted. And he felt alone a lot of the time. And if you were to walk up to that kid sitting on the park bench and sit down right next to him, what would you say to him? What would you do with him?
My instinct is just to hold him, to just grab him and hold him and not let go. Depending on his knowledge of who I am, might be awkward. But if I were to just tell him that it's going to be okay and that he doesn't need to change at all to be loved and accepted in this moment.
Yeah.
And I would tell him that it's possible to be both completely acceptable in this moment and have things that he needs to work on.
Okay. And
that he can believe both of those things at the same time. And I would just hold him. I wouldn't want to let him go.
Okay. Beautiful. That's beautiful. And I can feel some sincere feeling towards that kid from you too, when you say those things. I can see it in your face. What would happen if you were to reframe a little bit, that every time you get that deep urge every couple of months to want to go and act out, that instead of it being your addiction, this thing you've been trying to kill forever, that it's actually just the kid on the park bench that's just forgotten for a second? And that the actual sexual triggers that you're having and the shapeshifter that's jumping up in front of you is actually just a different version of the boy sitting on the bench.
Mm.
And what would you need to do for the boy on the bench instead of succumbing to the shapeshifter?
I would have to listen to him, and I'd have to trust him. Like, I don't trust that 14-year-old boy. I don't trust myself. It's a relationship where I've proven how folly I can be, and I'd have to be willing to sit through those feelings that he's feeling, and that would be really difficult. I mean, that would be growth zone for me for sure. And so that would be a hero's journey to step into something like that.
Yeah. Which, if I remember the notes before the show, you're privy to understanding all about the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe the hero's journey is true. Like, it's truer than true.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to walk the hero's journey in my life. Because I admire people who do that, and I respect people who do that. And when those feelings of loneliness or inadequacy come up in my life, and I turn away from those emotions, I am not stepping into my hero's journey. I'm not stepping into that growth zone. So I kind of run away from that. And that just makes the feelings worse. It makes them bigger. It makes them more intolerable for me every time I turn away from them.
Yeah.
If I can just add, you've slayed a lot of beasts already, Daniel, with your hero's journey. You've overcome some threshold guardians. You've dived into the abyss at times. But you got some deeper abysses to dive into, and you have some other beasts to battle. And it's interesting to me, that story that you told about the ranch and that feeling that you got. I don't think I've had similar experiences in my life. I don't think that it's a small thing that you went broken and exhausted, and God showed up for you and you felt something. That to me says that God really needs you and wants you in the game. And you say, well, I have a hard time getting back to that feeling. And you're doing all this essay, and you're doing groups, and you're doing all this stuff. Everything you do should be focused on getting back to that feeling. You need a dose of that every day. Every day you need to know, I'm loved, I'm seen, I'm significant. Oh, what do you know? My client thinks I'm stupid, or my parents didn't acknowledge me, or whatever. My wife's mad at me. I'm loved, I'm seen, I'm significant. I feel that in my soul because I do these dailies every day. Or I stop and I ponder every day. I figuratively lay on that ranch every day for 10 minutes until I get that one little feeling of God sees me, God loves me. That's your work. Instead of focusing on forcing yourself not to masturbate, focusing on being good enough and doing all this stuff, your main work is that. Do you understand that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm so grateful to have sources in my life where I can feel that. Mm-hmm. My wife is compassionate and strong. She really is wonderful for me. You know, she's a type 1 diabetic. So in a way, she really understands what it means to have a chronic struggle with something that you need daily vigilance on, and how exhausting that can be.
But Daniel, as wonderful as your wife is, don't externalize that feeling. Feel it from within, between you and God, right? You don't need to get it from her. You don't need to get it from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess I feel like I feel God's love. I mean, am I getting that from my wife or from my children? You know, like rough and tumble play with my children is another place where I get that feeling.
Yeah.
Am I getting that from my wife or from my children, or are they just the avenue through which I receive some from God? And I'm still trying to figure this out.
That's beautiful. But for you to see it that way is even a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I have those sources. I have other sources that I can get it from. I let the whirlwind of life kind of displace that. You know, I've got things to do and tasks, you know, a house to clean and clients to see and notes to write and all sorts of, you know, my calling and all sorts of busyness that displaces that. And I let that kind of take my dailies out of the picture. You know, I've got my 6 dailies. I average probably 3 or 4 a day. And then when I miss a daily, I get critical. You know, I get critical again. I'm trying to motivate myself to go back and be consistent on those dailies with that critical O2 fuel. But it just kind of saps the joy out of the daily. Oh, it's another thing I have to do, you know, instead of like, I get to do these dailies. So I am always struggling with my attitude and my consistency around my dailies.
Yeah, but that's an ongoing process, and everyone goes through that. And I would challenge you. I got a couple of thoughts for you here, Daniel. I know we're getting close on time, but I want to share a few other things. One is when you notice that critical part of you that missed the daily, like that's the opportunity for self-compassion, and you get to do that repetition of self-compassion every time you get that critical thought through you. That's going to be part of the daily process itself. So even if you don't get them all today, or you miss a couple and you think, oh, I suck, it's like, oh, chance to practice self-compassion and I'll pick it up again tomorrow. Like it's no problem. I did want to just speak a little bit too, and this is a slight pivot, but I think it's in line. Number one, I agree with everything Brandon said, that's probably first and foremost, those dailies take precedence over everything else. But if you got your dailies rolling and you're being pretty consistent, and even though they're fluid, you're doing all right with it. You asked the question earlier about grieving, with this loss of this relationship you've had with your addiction. And how do I do that? Like, what are some things that I do? And there's a few things that I would maybe suggest as possibilities to help in the journey there. All right. The first one, and this is where Brandon was going early on, is that I actually have a series of different assignments in my groups that I have people work through. And there's a key here. You do the assignment and you share it with people. In my groups, they share it in group, or you can share it with a sponsor or somebody else. But first one is that I have them answer a set of questions, starting with all of the ways that my addiction has showed up for me and what it's provided for me over the years, which sounds backwards. So we got into 2 pretty deep ones right off the bat that you've already considered, but in what ways has my addiction showed up for me? What are the benefits that it's provided? What are the things and blessings that I've gotten as a result from it? How has it helped me learn to cope? What beliefs has it reinforced? Like all of that stuff. You're going to answer those questions. Then you're going to answer questions about what are the costs of having built a relationship with this addiction, and line out all of the costs: emotional, spiritual, social, sexual, like line out all of the costs. And when you have all that out in front of you, take the time to draft a series of letters to your addiction. You're going to draft a letter of, well, you can start wherever you want, but usually we start with anger, sadness, appreciation, acceptance. Write those letters and then can bring it all together into one letter to your addiction. So you can acknowledge all of it, the good and the bad, and you can acknowledge where you want to go with that relationship. And then you're going to go and you're going to read it to someone out loud that can hear it. So that would be one. The second thing that I do with my clients is I actually have them create an artistic version of depiction of their addict self. You can do it anyway. Stick figures. I had guys do sculptures. I've had guys bring in like plants because they're gardeners, and this is the metaphor they have. But it's a way to get the right side of the brain to kind of also be processing this addiction and the relationship you've had with it, and allow that grieving process to be taking place in a slightly different way. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing that I have my clients do, you started to do with us on the show today, is you're going to actually take those fantasies, that fantasy that you described on the show today, and you're going to take the sex out of it for briefly and look at what's left. What are the underlying needs that have been unmet? What are the underlying beliefs that are there that I need to question whether or not I want to continue to see as truth or not? And then what am I going to do to address those needs as I see them? And what you're doing now is you're doing some work with that boy on the park bench and saying, okay, there's some other ways to look at life here. And there, you are worthy of love. And this, I don't have to feel bad because I've had this for so long. It's what I learned, right? So anyway, those might be some tangible things that you could do that might help with the heart to process some of that grief. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I can finish up with some of the non-tangibles, and I love what Tyler's giving you, and that's a lot of the work we do in groups. But this ultimately comes down to letting go and letting God, Daniel. It's you have tried to control the narrative, and that's what it's all about, is stopping the control piece, letting go, letting God. Step 3, 12 steps, turn your will and your life over to the care of God. Not turning your will and life over to the care of Daniel, who can prove himself to be enough by using his addiction to accomplish things, and then he's good enough, right? Mm-hmm. John Eldridge says, there's something else I am after out here in the wild. I am searching for an even more elusive prey, something that can only be found through the help of the wilderness. I'm looking for my heart. And the way that the wilderness or nature helps you find your heart is it's quiet. You're communing with God. You're connecting to God. And that's one way that Eldridge uses. Tyler and I were talking about me sitting in my yard and noticing the beauty. You know, he was hiking with his daughter yesterday. Instead of waking up and having your focus be on that test that I'm going to get an A on, or that accomplishment, that money that I'm going to make, have your focus be on, where am I going to find it today? Where am I going to find that little God wink? Oh, like I'm seen, I'm loved. And I'm going to let go of my addiction. All the things that Tyler just told you to do, I've done that work, so I can say goodbye to that, because I get nourished and I get fed right here. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's the work that needs to be done. All right, Daniel.
Brandon, could I tell a story along with that did happen just yesterday?
Sure.
I think, I got done with church. I wanted to kind of get outside in nature a little bit. I invited my daughters to go with me. Brindley didn't want to go. Paisley didn't really want to go, but she said, oh, yes, because she wanted to appease me. So we drove out to this place, and no trails. We decided to make our own trail, and we started climbing this mountain, and the mountain was steep, and my daughter wasn't really that happy to be with me. She was more pacifying me. And then she started feeling like, oh, this is tired. I'm tired. This isn't very fun. And we hiked for a mile that way, straight up a mountain. And then we got up to the top of this mountain, and it started to level off, and we started to walk through this pure, lush, green, kind of open place with lots of trees that were starting to come up out of the ground. And then we kind of lost connection with all of civilization. And we sat down and we started looking through these binoculars, because we were looking for animals and shed antlers and stuff together. And then it just went dead silent. And my daughter Paisley sat there for a second. She said, Dad, like, when do we have to go home? I said, oh, you ready to go home? We just barely got up here. She said, no, I want to stay here. It feels so good to be here in this silence, Dad. This silence is amazing. I feel so much peace right now, Dad. Like, she wouldn't have been able to get to that place of peace and want to stay, and I would say metaphorically, in the rest of the love of God, if she hadn't gotten herself out of the old way of living, out of her house, a mile up a mountain, into nowhere, where God was waiting to say, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm here. And that's the blessing. And I'm not saying nature's the only way, but that's in essence, you're at the next threshold where you have to step off into that place and maybe go get some bumps and bruises so that you can have that open up again to you to say, Daniel, like, this is how I see you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to find ways to step out from underneath the pavilion that I've built over myself.
Yeah, that's it. Daniel, we're out of time. But man, I appreciate your vulnerability, the stories that you've told, the analogies that you've shared. You're really going to help some people with your story today and coming on. So just huge thanks to you. Thank you for coming on.
Your presence was a gift today, man.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay.
So anyone listening to this, I'm sure there's a lot of emotion stirring. Give it a thought. Give it a re-listen. And if you think it's impactful for somebody else, please share it. Thank you, guys.
See you guys.